God is not a status quo God. He is not a, let's just never change anything God. It's pretty amazing because God himself never changes, but he loves to switch things up on us. And I think he knows that it's really good for us to go through seasons. That's why every year you have a summer, a fall, a winter, and a spring. And we're always like, I feel like every season we always complain about, except if you're like the girl who's like, pumpkin spice lattes, or the guy. There are some guys out there. I know that, Jaden, I feel like you're probably one of those. I don't know. Maybe not. You're not, but you might be. But we have seasons in our life, and it's for a reason. God likes to take us through change. He likes to flip the status quo on us. And sometimes we don't really like the feeling of change, and the fear of change and the fear of no longer having our normal tends to supersede any desire for like something like a new season. Because sometimes a new season can be good. Sometimes, I know we just started another school year. Sometimes the next school year can actually be a good thing. Like even if I used to have all my classes with my friends and now this year I don't, I'm going to a new school, maybe that's someone in the room, like I switched schools, or now it's my first year in high school, or it's my first year in junior high, something's new, I just moved here. So I know there's a lot of us in this room, we're in the middle of like a transition, and I'm transitioning in as your youth pastor, but there's a lot of you you're in your own transition. And we don't always like that. We don't like the status quo. We don't like switching the status quo because we're used to it. But the thing is that if you hold on to status quo, if you hold on to that and you won't let it go, and you hold on to your normal, you will never experience revolution. Now some of you guys are like, wait, revolution like the youth group? No, I mean like the word revolution. Because I don't know if you guys know, but the definition of revolution is to forcibly overthrow a status quo in favor of a new system. I think we have that definition. A forcible overthrow of a status quo in favor of a new system. That's what your youth group, we shorten it to Revo, but you guys know the real word, the name of this youth group is Revolution, and that is what your youth group, the name, means. It means to switch things up. To not go with the normal. I'm not going with the flow of culture with my school. I'm not going with, just because everybody's doing one thing doesn't mean I necessarily go that way. Everyone could be running that way, but I'm running to God. Like that's the definition of revolution. To abandon the status quo. And see, this is not about, I started off talking about me being the new youth pastor. I've way moved on from that. I'm no longer talking about the new youth pastor. I'm talking about the season of life that you're in. God has a revolution for you. I firmly believe every single person in this room, you are on the brink of a season of your life where God is going to switch things up on you. And it is not about any leadership change. It is simply because that's the way that God works. The moment we start to get like, I think I could get used to this, or I think, this is how it's always going to be. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing. Often when we start thinking those types of thoughts, that's right when God's like, actually, my mercies are new every morning. I am doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? Like that word new is all over the Bible. God's doing new things. And he's switching up the status quo, and that's where the word revolution comes from. To overthrow a status quo, to throw it out, and to move on to something new. And that is a season that I feel like, as I was praying for you guys, I was praying, and I felt like God was saying, I have a revolution for them. I felt like God was saying that I have, not me, but he was saying to me like, Logan, God, I have a change of the status quo coming for everyone in Revolution. And if they want to be a part of it, they can. And if they don't have to, but if they want it, they got it. So I want to just talk about the story of David, King David, because it is a story of someone who overthrew the status quo. I know a lot of us probably know it, a lot of us probably don't, so I'm just going to kind of go through the basics of it. The part of the story I'm going to read is in 1 Samuel 17. I don't know if you guys like have your Bible app on your phone, but I would definitely recommend downloading the Bible app if you don't have it. It's awesome. Or if you have like a physical Bible, boom, brother man over there has it. You can read the Bible at any time if you have the app or your phone, but because we're going to be talking about the Bible a lot because we love the Word of God. Don't we, Revolution? We love the Word. Okay, 1 Samuel 17 picks up in the story of King David when the Israelites, they're on this battle line, and the Philistines, which was the enemy army, has lined up on the other side of the valley, and they can see them. They're like, it's all the Israelites, they're like, they got all their bros with them, and all their families are like behind them. It's the whole nation of Israel, and they're all lined up, and there's this valley in between them, and on the other hill is the Philistine army. And it kind of reminds me of like something you would see in like Lord of the Rings or something. I don't know, like it's like a battle scene. And then someone comes out, one of the Philistines comes out and actually says he was 3 meters tall. I don't know if you guys know math, but 3 meters is like 9 feet. 9 feet tall, I'm 6 foot. So a meter above me. He comes out and he marches onto the field. And he basically says, send out your best warrior. And I don't know how they heard him because they didn't have mics back in the day. Just think about the power of this human. They can hear him. And he yells, send out your best warrior to fight me. And if they can kill me, we will be your subjects. And if I kill them, you will serve us. So you got to be pretty confident in order to do a move like that. I don't know we thought our boys who did the pickup lines, we thought they were confident. I mean, Jesse, you were confident. But like this is like more confidence than that. This is like, if you kill me, all my people will serve you, and if I kill you, you're all of you will serve us. So they got this situation going on, and David, he's like 14 years old. Okay, so anyone here 14? Okay, so we got some 14-year-olds. So we got David, he comes out, and he's the youngest of his brothers, and all of his brothers, they're among the army, and everyone in the army is like super scared, and he comes up and he starts asking questions. He's like, who is this guy? Because little thing about David is David was actually too young, and he was too needed back at home to actually be on the front lines. It was almost like, David, we don't need you. You're too young. You're not strong enough. So if you could just go take care of the sheep, that'd be great. That's literally what he was doing. He was taking care of sheep, and he was running food back and forth to his family. So can you imagine, like, your whole family being on the front lines, and then you being told, hey, you're actually not strong enough and you don't have as much of a purpose as your brother, so actually if you could just be like the water boy, that'd be great. That was David. So David, being the water boy, he brings, water and food to his brothers, and he comes up and he's probably like, he sees like the Goliath, the giant, and he's like giving water. He's like, here's the sandwich I made you. And he's like, well, who's this guy? Here's this water bottle. Who is that? And he's getting closer, and he's kind of making his way through the crowd, and he says, who is this Philistine that defies the living God? And his older brother heard him and actually got mad at him. He was like, who are you? Like, get out of here. You're just trying to get attention. He literally accused him of trying to draw attention to himself and like make himself sound awesome. And David's like, can I not even speak? It just shows the relationship that he had with his family of being overlooked. And even his brother was like, get out of here, bro. And David's like, can I even speak? And he actually says, King David goes to Saul and actually says to him, let no one lose heart on account of this guy, this 9-foot giant. I'll go out and fight him. That's what he says. 14 years old, and he's telling the king. He literally goes to the king. And you would think the king would maybe, I don't know, a point of strong person. The king is like shaking too, like super afraid, super nervous, and no one has the bravery to go and fight Goliath except David. And the verse I want to key in on, because I want you guys to see what the status quo of that time was, is verse 11. 1 Samuel 17, verse 11. On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul, who was the king, King Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. That, my friends, was the status quo that David walked into. That was the norm. Somehow, I don't know how, the Bible doesn't really tell us, but somehow fear had become the status quo of the Israelite army. Somehow, being on the sidelines had become the status quo, had become the norm for the Israelites. Somehow, when the enemy reared up and said, hey, if you're strong enough, come fight me, somehow pretending like you didn't hear became normal. And being terrified and being dismayed means like discouraged or like hopeless. Somehow hopelessness became status quo. And God is not a status quo God. And when your status quo is fear and hopelessness and discouragement, maybe I'm like describing, maybe you thought, I've never been able to relate to that story before, but now today you're like, wow, I can actually relate to fear, discouragement, dismay, hopelessness. I can relate to that stuff. Maybe you're feeling something similar to what, maybe you're probably not, I mean, that'd be crazy. Let me know if you are and I'll help you out. If you're facing like a 9-foot physical giant, we'll send Jesse will kill him. Yeah, let us know. But you're probably not. You're probably facing some sort of inner giant, something that's maybe other people can't see. A lot of us fight giants all on our own and nobody even knows. And God has a revolution for you. Because God doesn't let you stay where you're at. The Israelites were discouraged. They were afraid. And God sent someone to bring revolution. The name of our youth group. I don't know if that means anything to you, but to me, when I love the name of our youth group. That word is special to me because it means what I think and I pray for you guys is that the name revolution would mean that you guys would be people like King David, who when everyone else backs away, you stand up like, no, not in my house. And you stand up for your friends when they are going through something and they're fighting their own Goliath. You say, don't lose heart on account of this giant, let's fight them together. That is my heart, that you would be someone who would rise up and believe God to be who he actually says he is. Because we actually live in a culture, guys, we live in a culture that people tell you all the time, like, ooh, don't believe God for too much. Like, all the time. Like, people will applaud you for going to church, like, oh, I'm so glad you're going to church. But the moment you start talking a little crazy, like, I think that I want to live a little bit differently. I don't want to talk that way anymore. I think I actually want to not just go to church, but I want to like start reading my Bible, and I want to hang out with different friends. I want to get around, not that I want to abandon my old friends, but I need to get around some people that love Jesus. And then everyone's like, oh, what? Even family members, like I've had people come to Master's Commission and their family members tell them that it's stupid. A whole year devoted to God. Dumb? And that's what it's like. That's the culture that we live in, is like, culture will be like, oh yeah, church is awesome. But then the moment you get a little serious about it, they're like, whoa, don't believe God for a miracle. I mean, he's real and all, like, you know, love Jesus, but don't devote your life to him. Don't go crazy. And honestly, I believe Jesus is like the exact opposite. He's like, no, actually, yes, devote your life. Like, let's do this. Let's be a group of people that aren't just like kind of half into the whole church Bible thing and half out. Like, you know, like who likes that? I think we have a word for that, like fake, right? Someone who's like, oh, I'm kind of like that here, but when I go back to school, I'm kind of not. And God is like, no, let's actually like have a revolution. So, in Revolution, we're not going to have that mentality of like, don't believe God for too much. You know what? I actually think in Revolution, we're going to try crazy things and believe that God's going to show up. We're going to go out on a limb in Revolution and believe that God is absolutely going to change your life and everyone else's life who's here. Some of you desperately need it, and you're like, I can tell even right now, some of you, and I'm not mad at all, but I can tell even some of you right now are like, I don't know. I love that you don't know, because just wait and see. God has a revolution for you. Just wait and see. So, David comes in knowing that he doesn't serve a status quo God, because God is not mundane, and he's not bland, he's not beige, predictable, boring, vanilla, mediocre. He's not status quo. And David, knowing that, walks up, and he decides to revolutionize things. And if David can, so can we. We have to be like David. We have to remember that his word says that his thoughts are higher than our thoughts, and his ways are higher than our ways. So sometimes like God puts you in a situation in life that just doesn't make sense. Sometimes God puts you in a situation in life where it's like, why would God do that? Why would God allow that to happen? We gotta believe that his ways are higher than our ways, and his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. Just take, some of us, we've asked God that question, like, God, if you love me, why would you let that happen to me? Let's ask the question, let's read the Bible and ask the same question. If God really loved the Israelites, why would he put them in a situation where a giant comes out and no one knows how to defeat him? If God really loves the Israelites, why would he put people in hopeless situations? Because it's right there in the Bible. We're reading it right now, 1 Samuel 17, hopeless situation. Maybe because God knows that they can overcome, they just need to believe in him. Maybe it's because God has a revolution that he's going to do, but you'll never experience it if you're not in that situation. You will never experience God's power if you're not in a sticky situation. Well, some of us, we're just praying for miracles, but we're praying for miracles, but the moment we're in a situation where we need a miracle, we start complaining. We're like, God, I want to see miracles, and I want to see you do big things. And then suddenly it's like, now I need a miracle. Why would you do that, God? And he's like, I thought you wanted a miracle. I thought you wanted to know I was real. I thought you wanted me to prove myself. Just wait, he's going to prove himself. So, David comes in, and we got to be like David. And there's two truths that I want you to know. Two truths, and I kind of phrased them kind of funny. I don't know if they're going to be funny to you, but I was like, this is weird. But I just decided to go with it. Two truths. One, God is, I'm going to have you guys repeat this after me. God is stinking powerful. And the second truth is that he's in Bellevue this time of year. See, sometimes we think that God is kind of like Santa Claus. He's like this good idea that we believed in when we were children, and every now and then we ask him for things on our wish list, and we know he only comes around once a year, week-long, but it's not Christmas right now. It's not week-long. So when it's not week-long, we stop believing in God. But I'm here to tell you that God is actually in town this time of year, and he is stinking powerful. Because God is not like Santa Claus. So those two truths that I want you to know, that he is stinking powerful, and he's in Bellevue this time of year, because sometimes, like David and Goliath, let me back up. Everybody loves an underdog story, am I right? Who doesn't love an underdog story? Do you guys remember the last time Bellevue East beat Bellevue West in a football game? Hey, don't laugh. I was there the last time that Bellevue East beat Bellevue West. It was my senior year, and it was the most amazing moment of my high school career. And it's gonna happen again one day. I love you, Thunderbirds. I love you, but it is about time that Bellevue East beats Bellevue West. I love you, Thunderbirds. It's gonna happen. Revolution, yes. Everybody loves an underdog story. I went crazy. You guys should have seen me. I keep saying this, but maybe I'll bring pictures of like me at the East-West game. I was like completely purple. I was shirtless. I had a six-pack. I did. And I have pictures to prove it. And I'm like at the East-West game. I wasn't on the football team. So if you're not on the football team, you just show off your abs. Like, that's what you do. So I'm like, I was the E in Beast. Yeah? So I'm like completely purple. Because I heard that they don't let you take your shirts off at games anymore. I guess it's a thing. Anyway, I was the purple guy, and I had the E on. It was awesome. And I'm like, you know, on the crowd. In the pictures, you can literally see Rachel's like right behind me in the crowd. She's like right there. We were like talking. And you should have seen me. I freaked out because everyone loves an underdog story. I don't know if you know the story. I will tell it sometime. If you don't, it was amazing. But we all love an underdog story, but I have a little bit of a disappointing news for you guys. Like, the story of David and Goliath is not an underdog story. Actually, hold on, let me correct myself. It is an underdog story, but Goliath was the underdog. And in this story, the underdog lost. So it's not your classic underdog story, because it's actually the story of who should have won. And there's a lot of, you know, I'm not going to go into the crazy science behind it, but scholars believe that Goliath actually was really tall even for his time. Like, there weren't other giants. There were giants, but he was crazy taller than even them. And they actually believe that he had a condition where it messed with his body, and he actually had vision problems. And they believe that he had double vision, or like almost like where this eye would look that way and this eye would look that way. And it's, yeah, like cross-eyed. So that was like the condition that he had. So they didn't know it because they were too far away, but he was just a really big scare tactic. And he was out there, he couldn't even see him. And actually, if you read the story, he has close-range weapons because it made him completely nearsighted, so he could kill you if he was close to you. But he actually, even in the story, if you read the story of David and Goliath, he calls David to come closer to him. He's like, come out to meet me. And it says he has a sword and he has a javelin. Those are two close-range weapons. Like, you're not going to throw it. I mean, you do throw a javelin, but you're not going to throw it, like, insanely far and be that. I mean, you're going to be able to see the javelin coming back. I mean, you got to be a little bit close to get killed by a javelin. So, if you read the story and you go back to the science of it, actually David was incredibly more likely to win that fight. He was a trained fighter with a slingshot. In fact, that slingshot was about the same danger, or like I can't remember the word I'm looking for, but it would do about the same damage as like a small handgun today. Like the way that they made slingshots back then. It was made out of leather, and you would pull it back, and the little pebble you put in there went as fast as a bullet. And like from a small handgun today. So he is armed. David is armed. And he's already, read the story, he actually has experience killing bears and lions with a slingshot, and with his bare hands. Like, this dude is like insane. So you got David, who's killed bears and lions and is basically armed with a small handgun, and you got nearsighted, double-visioned Goliath, like, come out to meet me. It was not a fair fight. But the Israelites, that's what happens when you're living in fear, when you're living in the status quo, is that things that should be easy to kill, you tell yourself, I can't do it. Things that should be, it is your destiny to overcome that giant, and things that should be easy for us to believe, like, I know God's got this, we're like, I can't do it, I can't. And God's like, you got a slingshot and he's nearsighted. That's what the enemy is like in your life. Like, it's not a fair fight. When you got God on your side, there is no way you're going to lose. And I want to tell you guys a story of someone. There's this girl from history in the 1980s. She changed up the status quo. She wanted to, her name is Bridget Mergens. Anyone heard that name before? Good. Her name's Bridget. I'm glad that no one's heard it, because I want to tell you guys a story that you never heard before. Because this story actually really pertains to your life, and you have no idea. Bridget Mergens wanted to start a Bible study in her school. And she asked her principal, and he said no. And this is in 1985. And she and her group of friends were so passionate about God and so passionate about people in their school getting to know God too, that they were not going to take no for an answer. And so Bridget and all of her best friends, a group of them, they sued their school. And they took them to court and said, you know what, you don't have the right to tell us that we can't have a Bible study after school. And they took them to court. And in the court, they lost. The court sided with the school and said, actually, they have every right. They're not breaking your First Amendment rights for free speech and practice of religion. So actually, yeah, you can't have your Bible study. And they didn't stop there, because they're like, you know what, when God wants to do a revolution, we don't care what the court says. So they took it to a higher court. They appealed. They took it to a higher court. So that higher court is called the 8th District Court. And it's not the Supreme Court, but it's like way up there. And in the Supreme Court, in the 8th District Court, they won. And they were granted the ability to have a Bible study. But the school hit back. Because sometimes, let me tell you, when you're in the middle of a fight, the enemy does fight back. And sometimes we think it's going to be one blow and the enemy falls down. And you know what? Sometimes that does happen, but sometimes the enemy's got a little bit of a fight in him, so you have got to fight even harder. Because when God says, I want you to do something, think about this girl. I'm going to start a Bible study in my school, and they're telling me it's not legal. I'm going to sue. Like, that takes crazy faith. And she and her friends fought that court case, and then the school appealed it even farther, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court. This is in 1985, all the way to the Supreme Court. The trials lasted for 5 years. 5 years? You're not even in high school for 5 years, guys. There's a chance that some of them started the trial and ended it, and they were already graduated. They're fighting for people after them, for their rights, to practice religion on school grounds. And in the Supreme Court, there's 9 Supreme Court justices. 8 out of them sided with her. And they won in the Supreme Court. Now, how does this apply to you? That school was Westside High School in Omaha, Nebraska. And Bridget Mergens went to Revolution, and she sat in this very room. She went to this youth group, and it was called Revolution back then, and she believed, I'm believing God for revolution, and took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and they won. That's the youth group you belong to. And if you don't believe me, we're going to watch a video here in a second. Watch the video. In the interview part, look in the background. Maybe you'll see a familiar face. Cue the video.
Omaha, Nebraska, 1985. A group of students at Westside High School wants to form a Christian Bible study club that would meet after school but on school grounds. One of the students, Bridget Mergens, asks the principal, James Finley, if they can do so, but he says no, saying the school could not allow a staff member to sponsor it. So Mergens and the rest of the students took the school district, Westside Community Schools, to court, saying the district broke the Equal Access Act, a law passed the previous year that required secondary public schools to provide equal access for its students to all extracurricular clubs. The students argue that denying the Bible study club went against the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment to the Constitution. The U.S. District Court for the District of Nebraska ruled in favor of the school district, arguing the district did not violate First Amendment nor 14th Amendment rights. They also said the district didn't break the Equal Access Act. The students appealed to the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which reversed the decision of the lower court. While the Court of Appeals said the Equal Access Act could have been written better, it said it was constitutional. More importantly, it said the district was taking away the students' First Amendment rights by not allowing them to meet on school premises during, quote, non-instructional time. Westside Community Schools schools appealed to the Supreme Court. The core issue was whether or not the Equal Access Act violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment by its requirement that schools allow clubs not related to stuff being taught in schools. Were religious clubs protected under that as well? The court heard oral arguments on January 9th, 1990, but it wasn't until June 4th that they decided. In an 8-1 decision, the court sided with Mergens and the rest of the students, saying the Bible study club could meet.
Boom. So that's, my friends, yeah, give it up. Don't ever say that God can't use you to change the world. Because someone sitting in your very seat changed the world, changed the nation, changed the legislature. It happened in this room. She sat in this room. And we tell ourselves, God couldn't do that through me. God couldn't reach, we tell ourselves way smaller things than that. Like God couldn't reach one friend. Oh, he could. Oh, he could. Because God is all about revolution. He is all about revolutionizing the world, revolutionizing your school, revolutionizing your families, revolutionizing your jobs. That is the God we serve. So the big question is how? How do you get to that place where Bridget got? How do you get to the place where sitting in revolution, you have enough faith to follow God when you hear him speaking? Well, I believe that the way that you do that, the way that you become someone who enacts a revolution, is you have got to first allow God to do a revolution in you. You cannot carry out a spiritual revolution. You can carry out a worldly revolution all day, but you cannot carry out a spiritual, from God revolution unless you have allowed God to revolutionize your heart. Because if you haven't let God change what's in you and be the one to be leading you, you have got nothing to offer. All you have is a few fun ideas. But ultimately, we're reading the story of David and Goliath, God does miracles. God is the one who changes everything. But if you don't even have him, how can you bring the revolution? I know everyone in this room wants to change the world, and some of you I don't want to. It's a desire in you that I know maybe you're dead to for some reason, but it's there. Everyone has it, a desire to change our schools and to change our families and to change our friend groups and to change the way we think about ourselves. Everybody in this room has, you were put on this earth for a purpose. You know you were, it's deep inside you. But you can't carry it out unless you let God revolutionize your heart. Revolutions start within, way before you can see it on the outside, way before the Supreme Court sides with you, way before your entire school is filling up this room. Revolutions start in your heart, way before everyone is on their face at the altar seeking God. Revolutions start in your heart long before everyone knows that everyone in this room knows that they were called according to God for his purposes. They start in one person's heart saying, I believe God, and I'm going to believe him for more, and I'm going to let him revolutionize me in the way that I think about him, and the way that I think about people, and the way that I think about myself. I'm going to let God change me. Way before the group changes, one person gets changed. Way before all of your friends, way before all of them change the way that they live, one of you changes. I was talking to you about it at week long, and I know I'm calling you out, but I was talking to you about it at week long. Way before you influence the nations, which you will, you change. I know you know it's true. Way before the world changes, one person changes. And the thing is, is that often the things that God wants to do in us are not easy. The things that God wants to do, it takes us really believing him for a miracle. Because last time I checked, it's not easy to stop the way you think about yourself. It is going to take a miracle. Remember I talked about, we're always praying for miracles, but then we complain when we're in a situation that needs one. Well, maybe the way you think about yourself needs a miracle. It's about time you had a revolution. It's about time your mind had a revolution. Some of you think that your friend groups, like you could never influence them. And you think that God hasn't given you a purpose, like God forgot about you. He gave a purpose to you and to you and to you, but for you, he forgot. God hasn't forgotten about you. You need a revolution when it comes to your belief in God. Some of us, it's your habits. You got some crazy bad habits, and those are the things that are killing you. And so I know for some of you, even right now, you're like, that's me. Like, you're on board, you believe God, you know he exists, but you can't kick this one sin pattern. That's okay. There's a revolution for you. God. Changed within you. And I don't know specifically. I can't go through the line and be like, Neptom, this is the revolution in your heart. And then Elijah, here's the revolution that needs to happen in your heart. Miranda, you're a leader now. This is the revolution that needs to happen in your heart. I can't do that. I can't go through everybody and be like, I'm not God. But there is a God who does know you specifically and can say, hey, you will change the world because I called you to live a great life, and this is what I want to do in your heart, the way you think about yourself, the way you view your family and your friends. It could be so many different things. It could be depression. It could be trusting people. It could be trusting God. It could be the way you love him, and maybe it's simply a time thing, like you're not giving him enough time in prayer or worship. Maybe it's like having joy. Like for some reason, they're like, your heart is like lacking joy and you don't know why. God has a revolution for your heart. Long before you change the world, there's an inner thing that has to happen. Maybe it's being disciplined, like becoming the person like who really does eat right and work out and does things that are healthy for them. Like that could, maybe not for some of you, that's the one thing I want to change. Like God has that for you, like the ability to, it's called self-control. It's a fruit of the Spirit of God. God has that for you long before you ever do anything like Bridget Mergens. Liking yourself. Believing his word to be true. Those are all heart changes. So what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes. I want you to just think about, maybe you need to think about it, or if you feel like you can hear God, just let God say the thing that needs a change in your heart. Maybe it's unforgiveness. Before you can go and live your purpose, you got to forgive. Whatever it is, there's a revolution that takes place in your heart. Bridget Mergens didn't just decide to go to the Supreme Court. She encountered a God that she knew would win. And that's why she went to the Supreme Court. Think about it. What in your heart does God want to revolutionize? We're not called revolution for no reason. And now, as I just had you close your eyes so you could think about it, you want to be a part of a revolution. You want God to revolutionize your heart, and you want to be a part of a revolution. Like the same people who came before you back in 1985, the same kids who changed legislature. You want to be the kind of people who believe God. The same kind of person as David, who when he sees the giant is like, no, we can kill him. If you want to be that type of person, I want you to just stand to your feet. Stand up. Maybe not everybody, but if you want to be someone who lives a revolution, stand to your feet. And I actually want to end this first night of revolution. We're not going to do anything like crazy emotional. I want to pray over you and actually pray with you. So sometimes it's hard to pray for yourself. So I actually have a prayer that I wrote. I was thinking about this message, and I was just thinking about what would be a good response to God, like when we hear this, a call to let him revolutionize our hearts. I wrote down a prayer. And this isn't something I got online. I literally wrote it down, and they might be silly, but I wrote down a prayer, and we're just going to say it. I'm going to say it first, and if you want to pray this with me, just repeat after me. So go ahead and dip your heads. Close your eyes. Know that you're standing before God, and let's say these words to him. God, I'm ready for a revolution. I am ready for you to change the status quo of my life. I am done being afraid. I am done with being on the sidelines. I am ready for change. Help me believe in you. And help me believe that you can use me. Help me love you. And help me love others. God, I pray that this youth group would unite and not simply have the name revolution, but that we would be a revolution.